Hey, what's up? This is Brad with Fateless. I'm going to be joined by one of my OG friends, one of the people I've known the longest in the gaming content creation sphere. Someone I've met in person, what, 3 or 4 times at this point, and
Many times, many times.
yeah, exactly. And Darth, I still have the gift you gave me, your Alaska
Oh, the
snowball
little
right here.
Alaskan. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
still.
got that in the airport of Alaska on the way. I was like, I should bring them a little Alaskan souvenir.
Yeah, I got it. I got it on my desk here. So yeah, we're trying to do something here on the channel where we talk with people in the gaming industry, content creators, game developers, whoever, and just kind of talk about some of the stuff that's going on with what we're doing, and just kind of have casual discussions for fun here. But I wanted to get your perspective as someone who's been a creator for a while, and I guess first I'll let you go ahead and just give people like the quick 1 minute rundown of who DM is and kind of what you're up to recently.
So I am Darth Microtransaction. Some people in the space might know me from when I was covering mobile content, and lately I've been covering sort of the ARPG genre, Diablo 4, Path of Exile, games like that, and a daily live streamer.
Heck yeah, and how's it been going for you? I know you did like Raid first, and then like Diablo Immortal, dabbled a little bit, eventually got into Diablo
Yep.
4, Path of Exile, all that type of stuff. How's it kind of been going?
It's been going pretty good. 2023 was a pretty busy year, but it's been probably, other than being the most busiest year, it's been probably the most enjoyable year so far of content creation.
Heck yeah. Well, I guess first we'll kind of go through and answer some community questions that people had here on the channel. And then after
Sure.
taking a couple of those community questions, we'll talk about some of the things that you would want to see from the projects that we're doing and the first big game that we're working on and what would make you want to cover it and what are some of the priorities that you think would really make sense. So let me go ahead and pull this up right here.
Sounds good. Ask away.
That's right. There we go. Well, we'll kind of go in order here. So we've got here from Trigger Happy John. What aspects of all the other games you have played and covered would you say are the best key to success aspects for games?
So very often I see the feedback in games that there's not enough content. I think one of the common complaints I myself have done, as well as I see as feedback from other creators, as well as the community, is typically like, we need more things to do, particularly in whatever the end game might be of most of these games. However, I've noticed in games that have about the same amount of content, but the in-game loop is actually enjoyable to accomplish, you don't really see this same complaint. And I think it's kind of a misunderstanding of what people mean by more content. So to answer the question specifically, I would believe that whatever the in-game loop of a game is, the design of that has to be fun in and of itself, that loop of gameplay, because it is not possible to create content at a pace in which can outpace how quickly the players would digest it. So no matter what company you are, you'll always be behind. So for that reason, I would say that having gameplay loops designed that are fundamentally enjoyable and don't fall off as repetition happens with these loops is probably how I'd answer that question. Shout out to John, by the way.
Yeah, heck yeah. Good answer. Good answer there and good question, John. Okay. Then we've got from Jarl Hobby. Favorite myth, legend. Let me get this on the screen. Where is that at here? Favorite myth, legend, or folklore that you wish would get a spotlight in a game?
Oh, wow. That's a good one.
On the
You know what?
spot.
I'm
On
from
the spot.
Alaska. I'm just going to throw this out here. It's not really a favorite of mine, but I think it would be funny to see it like utilized somehow. You know, Balto, like the sled dog that brought medicine up to Nome. For some reason, that one's in my head right now. So it'd be funny to see a game implement that as a side quest, just as a shout out. You like have a dog sled. It's like our town needs medicine delivered or something. It could be kind of funny. Just as an Alaskan, that comes to mind.
I'll bring it up in our next meeting. We'll see if we can get that in.
Hang on, do Balto the sled dog.
All right, D Raven or Draven. How does it feel to be Asmongold famous? There you go.
Asmongold famous, huh? Well, I don't know if he's meaning it's from being reacted to or as famous as, but definitely not as famous as. So I'm assuming he means being reacted to. And I would say that it is interesting to watch people you've watched for years, like just as a fan, then watch your content is I don't know, I want to say like shocking maybe is the word. Like you're like, oh, and then it happens again and again and again, and you're like, oh wow, like I actually know this guy. And so when that started happening to me with Asmongold, it was a little bit like surreal. Like I knew how many eyeballs that was bringing. And then he sponsored me with Starforge and stuff. So it's been a overwhelmingly positive experience, I suppose. Yeah, in terms of like famous, I'm definitely not famous, but I've met a few people like in person that knew who I was, either at TwitchCon, or just going to dinner or something. And I've yet to have a negative experience. I've said this before, but like pretty much anyone that's ever come up to me has always been, for the most part, nice. I don't know if it takes like a large amount of social skills to randomly go up and start a conversation with someone you've never talked to before, and so that's a biased part of it where those types of people are just going to be more polite. But for the most part of it, yeah, I've never really had a negative experience with people.
Nice. Okay. You may have addressed this a little bit, but what, in his opinion, makes a game worth playing long term? I guess you kind of said the core gameplay loop being engaging enough.
Gameplay loop's got to be enjoyable, but I'll push it a little further and say, even though while you cannot develop a product faster than it will be absorbed, you still have to continue to develop the product. So communities and games will die when they know the game is abandoned. Very often, then the community itself will actually take that game up and start creating the content forward. Star Wars Galaxies comes to mind as an example of one of these games that is still alive through the community alone. Descent would be another one, actually. So there's examples I can think of in which, even though a game is stopped production entirely, people still need to see content being developed to even want to play the game in the first place. So I would balance out my previous point with the fact that while yes, the loop needs to be enjoyable, you still have to continue to develop the game.
Yep, for sure. And what else a good one? Because you've done a lot through the years. RuneScape and League of Legends and Raid and Diablo Immortal, Diablo 4,
Yep.
Path of Exile. You're about as OG as they come, and about as well-versed as they come. So Texas Dude says, what game have you enjoyed covering the most? Like, if you just take views and money aside, what does Darth enjoy the most for fun if none of the money and the financials or anything mattered?
Well, it's probably still Path of Exile just because of how much stuff there is to do. But if I'm going to give the non-obvious answer, I'm going to shout out Marvel Future Revolution, a now defunct game that was shut off. That was around an IP I liked, which was Marvel. And in the start of it, I really enjoyed it. And then very quickly, it became just too big of a cash grab for me. And, I was kind of done with it. I stopped covering it. And then the game shut down. But Marvel Future Revolution was actually a really fun game.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I remember that one, and you were wrecking the PvP scene there for a little bit. I remember when that one came out. Captain Jackwagon, in his opinion, what is the best way for a game to be profitable without being predatory or being completely unbalanced between free-to-play and whales? What style of game for mobile is the best in his opinion, like gacha, RPG, etc.?
So in terms of profitability, while still being healthy to the consumer, I prefer two different styles, which is subscription-based models where you're paying monthly to access the game, and then the game is developed off of that. And then if they want to go above and beyond selling stuff in the store, they can, as long as it does not adjust gameplay, would be one such way that I enjoy it. The other part is going to be cosmetics. League of Legends comes to mind, where the game is 0% pay to win. All right, 0% at all. You can earn all the heroes, all of that. However, skins are the primary source of income for that game. Riot does quite well for themselves, and they're only really selling cosmetic modifiers. So for me, I've never got upset by seeing cosmetics being sold in a game, and will continue to be fine with purchasing or having other people purchase cosmetics within the same game I'm playing. The only time when I've ever run into cosmetics being an issue is when the cosmetics themselves are either the same as or better than cosmetics that are earned through skilled gameplay in the game. For instance, if there's like a challenge league or something that happens and the cosmetic is a crown with like 3 horns, if you sell a 4-horn crown in the shop, that's just statistically better than the one you have to be good at. It devalues the work the other people would put in. And those are the only times I tend not to like cosmetics. But for me, it's going to be subscription based and cosmetics to answer it. And in terms of like what style of games is best in his opinion, I don't know about best, so I'm just going to answer what I tend to have played the most, which is gachas, just because I like dopamine. I like opening like, what's it gonna be, and wasting my own money. And that's just something that's part of the Darth microtransaction. I've always enjoyed the what is it gonna be aspect. So I know they're debatable, but for me, I always like gachas.
And I was gonna say that was kind of like the original concept of your channel, right? You were gonna be like the
A bit of a
loot box
parody.
with the mustache and the
Yeah.
dopamine going crazy. Yeah, okay.
How the name starts is a little bit of a parody. You know, you're supposed to be against the microtransactions, not join them. Like that's the meme of the Darth. Yeah.
Nice, nice, love it. Then we've got from Kaylin, that's a good one. Darth, with what you know now, being successful, what would you do differently if you started all over again? Like if we went back 10 years, would you do anything different in terms of streaming and content creation and gaming, or just kind of in general?
Two things come to mind. I'd say I'd probably start being from the beginning, more professional. There's been times where I was more rude than I had to be to certain people. How Hades comes to mind. I remember there was times he mentioned. I didn't even realize I said it, but there was time on a live stream someone was asking me my opinion of How Hades right when he was starting. I said like I find him a little boring for myself personally, but I like the guy or whatever. And that's just I didn't even think about it. I wasn't trying to be rude, but that's a pretty crushing comment to say about someone who maybe watches your stuff. So I've learned from that. Now my kind of philosophy is just be nice to everyone. Just be nice to everyone. So I've definitely learned from that one. In terms of doing things differently, I probably wouldn't share as much. There's been a lot of times when I've, done personal videos about like how I'm doing and how I feel about stuff, and those can be kind of rough because instead of it really helping out the cause, like men's mental health is one I care about a lot. A lot of times the haters are just used as a weapon against you. I'm like, oh, it's Cry Guy or whatever. And so that stuff can be kind of annoying, whereas really it's meant to like help people in similar situations. And then you kind of get to a point where it's like, okay, well, even if it helps people, I'm just going to choose not to do them, do the kind of being, dealing with the issues that come with that and as well. So I'm still kind of wondering how much I want to pursue that type of stuff because it's a cause I do really care about. I'll just probably pursue it from a different angle and more of a charity side.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a tough line to walk, isn't it? Because you can get more views by like calling people out and insulting people and being polarizing, and you can upload a video, trashing on some other creator or something and get more views. But it's kind of a double-edged sword because you don't really want to be like that as a person.
Yeah, luckily enough, I've never really made videos or anything attacking like other creators. That's just normally kind of not the way I do it. There's been a few times where I've butted heads with other creators, for sure. But for the most part, I try not to make a habit of like going at people, only going at companies. Like if there's a company I'm not particularly very fond of, I will, say my opinion on those type of things. And I've done that before. But to be honest, I even stopped kind of doing that as much because what I realize is I don't want to be the guy holding the flag, starting a war. I just want to talk about games. All I want to do is talk about games, have a fun time talking about games, play video games I care about, and make funny content. Like that's all I really want to do. And so I'm going to pursue that. But in terms of like getting more views or anything for attacking other people, I think that's a very short-sighted way to do it or look at it if you are going to make that kind of content, because I think in the long term, it only comes back to bite you. Maybe you'll get that one good video or something like, fuck this guy, I don't like him. But then people are just going to think you're an asshole for the most part, and you're not going to build like a fan base around being that guy. There's a guy, for instance, that isn't a good example of this. That is an example of doing it more properly, which is the Angry Joe show, where he's kind of a persona and a parody of like, oh, fuck this game, this is terrible type of guy. But it's the character that he's playing, and he's never really going at people, again, only at games and companies and reviewing the games, which are fundamentally different philosophies. So I am kind of thankful that from the beginning, that is something that I didn't do, was build a career off of going at other people. We've seen that happen even in our own genre, and it never worked out well for those people.
Not long term anyway. It's kind of like a sugar high. Like you get the views, but you can't really maintain that or anything. Yeah, I understand. Let's see. We got a couple more here, and then we'll get to Darth's thoughts on what we should be focusing on here at Fateless to make a successful first project. What does your perfect game look like? Characters from which game? Stories, dungeons, leveling, currency model, end game. Is that something you could kind of quickly?
Pretty broad question, but I'll just answer it with I like MMOs. MMOs are more of my favorite. I like more sandbox MMOs. If I had to say a perfect game, it's Star Wars Galaxies, redone in Unreal Engine 5 and touched nothing about it except how it was on release.
There you go. There you go. I mean, we gotta talk about the hair here, I guess. Your current hair routine. That's always a big topic here with Darth.
People actually do ask this a good amount. So, my hair care routine is less than you would think because I find people overdo stuff with their hair. You don't have to wash your hair every day. If you do, it's actually bad for your hair. So, wash your hair like twice a week at the most. And then I use a product called OGX, which is basically whipped, ultra whipped like egg whites in coconut oil type thing. And that's basically about it.
Well, I can't have long hair, so not gonna work for me here. A lot of questions about Path of Exile I'm seeing here. So I guess
Yeah, that makes sense.
as the last one to wrap up here, is that the most exciting thing you're focused on long term? Is that the thing that's got you kind of juiced up the most? Is like PoE 2 and kind of diving into that scene, or?
So Path of Exile is exciting right now because, the ARPG scene really kind of accelerated with the launch of Diablo 4. Everyone was really excited about Diablo 4. And then there's a lot of what I would call homeless ARPG players where Diablo 4 maybe didn't fill the void that they were hoping it would. And then they realized I actually really do like the ARPG scene, so they start trying other games. Path of Exile is one of those that has been slowly growing over time because they continue to develop it. One of the points I was talking about earlier, as well as the gameplay loop is enjoyable. Again, another point I was talking about earlier. I've learned these lessons from Path of Exile also. And then with Path of Exile 2 coming out, um, it's a good time to like learn Path of Exile. The community has actually been like super friendly and welcoming for me as well. So I've had nothing but a good experience with Path of Exile. So in terms of how I enjoy Path of Exile, if it's sort of an open-ended thing, it's pretty good game to cover. There's as much content as I care to make on it. It's a game you can live stream for 8 hours a day because it takes a ton of time to play. The community is fairly large and people like the game. It's like Final Fantasy 14, where when you find a game where it's the community in the game are super passionate about the game themselves, then it's an enjoyable place to spend your time.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Darth, and thanks for all the community questions. Those were great, and thanks for touching on a few of those. I guess lastly here to wrap up, I wanted to also get your opinion on like what would be the most important things for us to focus on our first big project here at Fateless, which our first big project is going to be kind of a turn-based RPG hero collector gacha game. You kind of know the drill. You've played in many of those. So like I'll kind of frame this in the way, I know you talked about the core gameplay loop and all of that, but when DM downloads a new game, which you've done hundreds of times, and you're playing for the first like 30 minutes, what are some of those things that we really need to hit? Like if you were in our meetings, what would you say that we really need to get right in terms of being successful in that market? Is there a certain amount of champions? You got to have 200 plus champions. Is there like certain things like that you would really look for?
Well, there's a few things notably that comes to mind, and I'm going to tell you the things that'll make me not play the game first, which is a bad explanation process. So if it takes me 2 hours to get into the main menu and actually unlock the game, I'm not going to play your game. So if I have to launch it and then sit through, mobile pop-ups, which I'm on my phone, so it's hard to read, and it's just like no voiceovers, slow scrolling text, explaining things that take forever. I'm just going to turn it off and never turn it back on again because I'm not going to spend the time it takes to get through the tutorial. You got to be able to move it along if the person wants to get into the game that is familiar with these types of games before. Number two, the dopamine's got to be good. Let's be honest. You play gachas, most of the time it's for dopamine. Some of the time it's because they enjoy the auto battlers and building the characters. Exos Heroes is an example of this. Is one of the games which I thought the game was all right, maybe mid, maybe all right, maybe a little better than mid. But the polls were so exciting, and the way they did it was so like no 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 no. You're like, oh, what's it gonna be? Was so fun that every time you got one of the resources to get a poll, that was like a real like, oh shit, here we go. Like I'm gonna enjoy a type of moment, which made me want to play in between those moments to get to the next one. And I think that that's kind of a carrot in the stick type of situation of how much you got to play for each one of those, and you got to find the balance in yourself and your own game there. But in terms of the carrot, when you get the carrot, it's actually got to feel pretty good. Number three for me is things that would make me play your game is transparency and communication from the beginning. I know me and you, one of the things we've always praised about games is when the people will come out, consistently say what's going on, address the feedback, and not just like hide and then do like PR management. Path of Exile is another example of this. I just did an interview with the Path of Exile, basically co-founder there, and they would just bluntly address all of the topics. And if they couldn't talk about it because of legal binding reasons, like we're waiting on Xbox or something, so we can't, mention cross-platform, for instance, is one thing they couldn't talk about. They would just say that, as opposed to like, well, maybe in the near future. And then that's about it. Like bluntness, honesty, and people that watch your interviews and everything, they're gonna know you're real people on top of being like a developer. So if you act like a real person, they'll treat you like a real person. Instead of acting like corporate, they'll treat you like corporate.
Yeah, and I love that shout out because that's something that we want to differentiate us. We want to be more engaging and do it kind of from a community focused perspective and not be so corporatized. Be normal people, normal gamers, have normal conversations like this with people in the industry. So yeah, I really appreciate that, Darth. Thanks for joining me. Is there anything you wanted to make sure to get in there or touch on? I know you got to get to stream, so we'll let you kind of get out of here and do your thing. But
I wish you success. I know we've been friends for years, which is why I'm here. And I know you've been enjoying the project, so good luck to you, my dude.
Yeah, thanks. It's been fun. It's been fun so far. But yeah, I will link to all of DM's stuff down below. So definitely head on over there and check him out. I believe you're still streaming like 7 days a week, right?
Yeah, streaming pretty much all the time. I'm online, so.
There you go. All right. Well, cheers, brother. It was fun to touch base with you, and thanks for stopping by the Fateless channel.
Good luck to you.